to a wider breeze. Presently, we're in Jamaica now, and we might
Yes.
extend our operations to other countries across the globe. So when we think about trade partnerships, we look at it through lens. The three lenses we say, first of all, is to scale up and our reach. We have strategic partnerships that allow us to scale up our reach to provide more visibility and coverage and reduce duplication and optimize resource utilization. Then the second is for the depth and effectiveness. Evidence consistently shows that programs designed with local and international partners achieve stronger outcomes and higher beneficiary retention. So, and the third is institutional credibility and sustainability.
Yes.
So,
I can hear you, Uchenna.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. So, as we look at, so based on the mission of the mission ambassadors that sit at the center of this partnership ecosystem. So, who are these ambassadors? These are ambassadors that provide the mileage for us. Our representatives in the international space, our representatives in the public space, our representatives that showcase what we do to the public.
Yes.
So for each ambassador, the purpose is like a symbiotic relationship where you can provide insights based on your reach to provide visibility for us, and at the same time provide the structures that support your own program or particular objectives. Yes. So basically, that's what we do. The purpose, how we strive to, the strategies we use for engagement of partners. And we scale up partners. We start from the first level where we have to do some projects together. And then we go into a long-term partnership where we can now institutionalize what we do, where our programs will now be linked to the ecosystem of whatever of the nonprofit sector, where we have to get the partner involved in everything we do, and the person becomes part of the organization, and just like every other volunteer in this organization, and have vested interest in the organization.
Yeah,
basically, so that's how we build our partnerships.
Uchenna, what's the long-term goal in terms of building partnerships? What can we expect to be the result if we can secure partnership from organizations or individuals, building those partnerships, say in a place like Jamaica that experienced large catastrophic hurricane, and trying to develop partnership within the United States, bring that outside to a place like Jamaica. Talk about how we get that done, or in terms of the real life benefits of developing these partnerships here, especially for a place like Jamaica that needs it. I know there are a lot of other places as well.
Okay, if I were to look at the real long-term goals of the partnerships, is to have institutions, to have structures that provides rapid response to issues like what happened in Jamaica. It was not really anticipated. So we have structures that will carry out our daily tasks, our major givings, and our major objective of providing shelter, health, and education to the basic shelter, health, and education to the people on ground. Then we have these structures put together for response to issues, to emergency situations, like what happened in Jamaica. So the essence of building the long-term partnerships is to build institutions in various locations, so that it will not be like where at each point we have to start mobilizing from the headquarters in the USA. So these partnerships will help us have strong relationships on ground at our very location, where we can always tap into the structures on ground to achieve any intervention we want to go into.
Absolutely. So we appreciate that, Uchenna, and tell us a little bit about your background, sir. I know that a lot of people may be asking right now, who's Uchenna, and how did you get in this area? Just tell us a little bit about your background, sir.
All right, thank you. I am Uchenna Ogbonna. I am a lawyer by profession. I'm a policy advocate, and I also am a risk manager, and I'm a
Right.
certified project manager.
Right.
I work in different fields. Presently, I lead the Ene Center for Legislative Reforms, which is an arm of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group
Right.
that focuses on legislative and regulatory interventions for economic development. We,
Right.
uh, we work with international organizations
Right.
to improve the ease of doing business across countries in Africa. And
Hmm.
presently at the Face Face Foundation, I work as the Director of Strategic Partnerships, volunteer
Okay.
director actually, but I'm committed fully to ensuring that the partnerships are strengthened in Face Face Foundation. I'm a man of very many fields. I have my doctorate in strategic management, which
Excellent.
also helps to build my relationship with people in every organization where I've worked. And apart from that, I'm also a certified HR secretary and a certified risk manager. So
Right.
across these fields, I have broad knowledge that helps
Hmm.
me to manage people and situations.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, which, and I know that when we first met, and saw your background and understood that you are someone with a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge. So I appreciate that. Stick around with Chen. I'm just trying to, see if we can get some more folks. Right. I don't know if Rizel can hear me. I know you on board, and I wanted to see if you wanted to say a word or two, Rizel, if you can come on. And, there are going to be some ambassadors, I'm pretty sure, that will hear this because at some point, I don't know if Rizel, if you can hear, hopefully you can.
Hi.
Uh, tell us a little bit about yourself, Reza. I know that a lot of experience in communications and all of that. So talk to us a little bit, Reza, and about
Oh,
programs you're trying to develop and all of that.
hi, my name is Rizel Hall. I am the acting director of programs management. I've worked in healthcare for over 20 years. I have a master's in public health and a bachelor in psychology. Um, my focus is working with people who are chronically ill and how they can manage their symptoms and improve them. That's where my work has been, as well as looking at medical billing side of things too, and analyzing claims. But I went to school because I wanted to help people, whether
Yeah.
it was due to health conditions or food insecurity, education. So my goal is, for people to, have a chance, right?
Yes.
So some of the programs that, we have worked on is our Instacart program, which will help with food insecurity for families, um, as well as our Jamaica Relief program that we are working on and going to meet with a company who can transport necessities, essentials for people that are impacted in Jamaica. So, such as food, clothing, um, the necessities that we all need on a daily basis. So, putting programs together like that to help people who are in need.
Absolutely. Reza, in terms of you said on the health side, I know that you have been involved in that. Talk to us a little bit about that in terms of how healthcare, how does that matter in terms of how we treat and how individuals who are trying to manage certain
Mm-hmm.
health situations, talk to us a little bit about that area. I know that you're a specialist there.
Well, I know when I first started with the foundation, kind of researching how areas, because since we are, working with people in Jamaica, working with people
Yes.
local to the States, specifically in Georgia,
Yes.
looking at those areas to see what is their biggest, issues. Are there food deserts, which are places that don't offer healthy food options, that you can't get fresh produce? So you look at those types of things. If you live in environments where it's all highly processed foods, because it's
Yes.
cheap and accessible to people, people are going to have a higher chronic
Right.
disease, such as
Mm-hmm.
hypertension, diabetes, things like
Yes.
that, which it can go back to educating people on the importance of it, their diet and movement. But that's how, you have to educate people. So even mentoring people, it can go back to in school with children, not just the importance of education, because education also is an importance, because in my research, I also have found that, a lot of people don't go to college in certain areas, but if you don't get an education, you have a greater chance of food scarcity, health inequity, things like that. So educating families on the importance of education, educating families on the importance of a balanced diet, makes a difference for, our children's future and how they're going to live and what they're going to experience. Meaning, are they going to live in impoverished situations? Are they going to be chronically ill?
Right. So in terms of, say, something like diabetes screening or, high blood pressure and all of that, how important is that? I mean, I figure that has to be very important for people who are in needing, like if you're trying to prevent health crisis, you want to catch it early. You don't want to. It's going to cost more to try to treat it. So you would think that education
having programs to screen people is great, but if you're screening people, you're going to be getting people that may already have it. So you're diagnosed, you're going to be sending them saying, hey, you need to go see your, family doctor, because, let's say you set up like a mobile, health screening for people to get, A1C checks or blood sugar checks or, blood pressure checks, kind of like how if you go into a pharmacy, sometimes they have a blood pressure cuff, you can check your blood pressure. But then what happens? Some of those people are not diagnosed, and then they're going to find out, but they're already in a situation where they may have it, right? So you want to do the prevention. There's a lot of things here in America is we don't prevent, we, treat what's already there. So the goal would be is to prevent or to catch things early on, because many diseases you can put in remission. I can use actually myself, and you don't probably know this, Winston, but I was on 2 blood pressure medications. I used to be in high school, I was over 300 pounds. So being on medication in high school, and this is like 25 years ago, but I lost weight, lost half my weight. I was off medication though within like 2 weeks, because it did my diet changed, right? I changed my diet. So within a couple weeks of me changing my diet, losing a few pounds, and to this day, I don't have hypertension. But I will say, hypertension does run in people's families. You are sometimes genetically predisposed to it. Both my parents had hypertension. Both of them were on medication. I had hypertension. So yes, I had a greater chance of getting it. I did have it. But I've also worked to not ever get it back. You know what I mean? So it goes in making the choice, but educating people. And so I learned early on, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't learn, early on. So, yeah.
So the food. So in terms of the food that we supply, you're talking about quality. You're talking about food desert where people, they live in cities and they can't just go get it off they have to go
so
buy
food
it at
scarcity.
Yep.
Some people don't have transportation. Some people, their local grocery store is, 2 to 5 miles. If you're not driving, then how do you get there? So that's where it creates problems. So people a lot of times, pick the chips, the cupcakes, and things like that in stores and in quick, and even quick things, macaroni and cheeses, all these simple things that are easy. And it's non-perishable, because depending on in other countries, even they don't have the opportunity to have a refrigerator, to have that constant cold. So it's not just a United States thing. Other countries, we have, electricity. However, other countries don't. So, there are healthy options that are non-perishable, but you have to, you can't pick, the Lay's potato chips, right? And it goes into financial, you can get 2 bags of chips for $1. So people a lot of times pick what's not just convenient, but what's affordable. So it's like, so again, it's location, it's financial, but it goes into people who have a better background in education, they tend to eat better. They tend to have a more financial sound background where they can afford more healthy options. So a lot of it goes back into mentoring children and their parents, because I don't think just mentoring children on the importance of education is enough, because a lot of times parents, if they've not graduated high school themselves, then how can they push for you? You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I will use me as an example. Neither one of my parents graduated high school, but I knew I didn't want to be like them and seen the struggle. So you have to have it in you, but not everyone has it in you to want more. So, you know, sometimes you need an outside resource to help support you, you know, to let you know. And it's not that you're necessarily giving someone school supplies, like as we would do, give someone school supplies in a backpack, but also educating those families when they come, or giving them a pamphlet with information and resources so that they can understand the importance of getting an education. Because I really believe a lot of things go back to education, with the whole chronic diseases, the food insecurity, you know, being able to support yourself goes back into education. Granted, there are a lot of people these days that do social media and make money off of it, and vloggers and bloggers, but that's not the reality for most people, right? That's the same thing with my kid wanting to be an NBA player. That's one out of how many boys that want to be an NBA player each year that are going to get picked. If it's 100 slots, but there's 100,000 that want it, but there's only 100 slots. So, you know, you have to have realistic goals. And you know, again, you go back into mentorship, education, supporting people when they're young, supporting the families. So it couldn't be, you know, supporting people with, you know, healthy options when you're looking at giving people food to support, you know, where they're missing these different things. We want to also guide them in a direction of, I'm not buying Takis for you. You know what I mean? I'll buy rice. Rice is a good carb. For some diabetics, maybe not too much rice, but that's a sustainable carb that I can give someone that can last and feed their family possibly multiple times, and is not full of a bunch of chemicals, right? Or, you know, you have sustainable milk, you know, milk that can go on the shelf, you know, canned vegetables, like it's a can, so it is processed, however, it is a vegetable still, and frozen things. So like canned vegetables, sustainable, you don't need a refrigerator. Frozen vegetables, you would. Frozen fruit, canned fruit. I mean, there's of course variations in the canned fruit, and you want to pick wisely, but there's so many options that we can offer to people that is essentials, that is sustainable, but also giving them healthier options, and not just saying, hey, here's ramen noodle package Kraft macaroni and cheese, because a lot of things that we eat is banned. You can't even get Kraft macaroni and cheese in certain countries, a lot of countries. So we want to help people, but we also don't want to feed into
we don't want to exacerbate
these disease. Yeah, we don't want, so, you know, it's kind of like you don't just give, you also educate, you give additional resources outside of that.
So I hopefully Dr. Uchenna is still there. I wanted to talk about, you know, we are hopeful that this broadcast will reach some people that are going to become ambassadors. That's the goal of this meeting today, to be able to have individuals that will become ambassadors and promote, like Roselle is saying, how we sustain healthy lifestyles. Dr. Uchenna, talk about sustainability. You know, if we give an individual a box of groceries, you know, how do we say turn your life where you can become a sustainable individual, meaning that you're sustaining, maybe get a garden and all of that kind of stuff, because it's not just what you give, and feeding an individual, but feed also the mind. Talk about that, Dr. Uchenna, if you're able to do that. I know we're getting close, but tell us a little bit if you're able to hear me, sir. Hopefully you can. If not,
sorry. If I get
talk
you
about
clearly.
sustainability in the area of nonprofit. You know, when we are trying to push food and all that, how do we sustain better lifestyle?
Okay, I believe you're talking on the context of sustainability of our
Yes,
operations in
yes,
the food supplies. And that is why we need long-term partners who will have some long-term MOUs with that will be able to support these programs, because a non-profit does not generate funds from anywhere apart from grants.
right.
So that's the more reason why we should build stronger partnerships. There are organizations that have a certain portion of their budget meant for
Yes,
social responsibilities like this. And that's what
yes.
we need to tap into, have some long-term engagements and documented MOUs where they will fund some of this giving.
So
And
something
the other
like what Dr. Joyce was talking about, how you bring sustainability to the communities that we are serving, and that's one of her ideas, that when we promote the foundation, and that we seek organizations that are into not just today's food and drinks and backpacks and supplies, even though their necessity.
in fact, I was going to that well, what apart from the giving of providing food and the interim, over time we're going to be looking at partners who can help build um, to lift people out of poverty. For now, we are still talking about helping. We need to lift people out of poverty, where instead of giving food, we'll be able to conduct trainings and set up workshops that will give people the opportunity to learn how to earn their own income, so that we don't
Yes,
have to continue giving this to a particular society. So if we focus on a particular community, the
right.
essence is to move from immediate sustenance to the long-term
To long,
sustenance.
so long-term sustainability. Yeah, that should be what is you said is being um, the, the goal should be the long-term sustainability of an individual that we're trying to help. How do we move that person from a state right now to a different state of getting out of poverty, and them becoming a change maker themselves, to be able to say to somebody else, here's how we did it. I work with this organization, Faith Friends Foundation, or any other organization that's involved in that. I am all on board with that, Doctor. I mean, I think we are on track right there. We're trying to find organizations that are in the sound of my voice, who are going to watch this on LinkedIn and Facebook, and to become partners with the foundation, and ambassadors who will want to join and help us find those partners, find those donors, find those people that are going to be able to help us fund these programs that are not just food getting, but say if you are in a community like Jamaica, where we can bring the type of things that we need to bring to that country, which is sustainability items, things like tools and what you will need to develop. So that is something that is absolutely important and is appreciated, and we're going to go a little longer because we started late, but not urging anyone if they had other appointments, but we are going to be working with different types of global organizations, and that's why we have you on board, Doctor, which who have some of the links that we're able to work with. We're like this next week we'll be meeting with a transport organization that we're going to be talking to about the things that we're trying to transport to a place like Jamaica, and hopefully the argument about sustainability, how we move goods and why, how we move people and why, what is the long-term approach to doing all of that, because that's something that we want to be able to tell an organization like we're going to be meeting with on Monday, to say, here's the long-term reason why, and there are the short-term reason as well, because of the disaster that occurred in Jamaica, and there's a disaster, we're trying to work and recover it. That is essential. And so we're not trying to, no one should minimize that, but it's important that we talk about long-term sustainability and all of that. Hopefully this broadcast will reach to some of our prospective ambassadors, and we'll get people joining up with Face Friends Foundation and becoming ambassadors and fundraisers as well. People are going to be able to help bring in not the partnership and the funding for these programs that we're trying to develop. And I appreciate the discussions that we have with Rizel about health concerns, because she talked about health, and I don't know, I know she knows, but that topic is so important and dear to people, not just here in Georgia, but in Jamaica and in our country, where we know where they go to get health and services is not always right there, and the quality is not always right there. And so therefore, she's talking about how we prevent crisis and from, start from, say, a community, okay, so we are dealing with a community. Maybe we can have, teach or mentor or say, here's how sustainable communities develop, and here are some of the policies and programs and known things that are known that people have tried and tested and developed, that have saved neighborhoods and brought people healthier lifestyles. People, she talked about obesity and the type of food that people eat simply because it's what's readily available and what's cheaper, and living in a community where it's easier to just get fast food or whatever it is. And so that argument resonate with a lot of people and myself, and I appreciate our argument. Hopefully, say a little bit more. Rizel, I want you to talk about, a little bit more about, I know you may have to want to keep up your time, Rizel, because you're joining us, but in terms of health concerns and food, what suggestions you have to be able to start? Like, where do we start?
For us to develop a program, or you mean for people who are struggling?
Yeah, I would say a combination, because how, if we're talking about changing lives, changing for the better, is it teaching? Is it they start? Is it a school program? Say when we provide these backpacks and supplies, do we sign people up into some kind of training or something? Any ideas? Not that we're going to pull the idea out of you right now, but give us your thoughts, Rizel.
I was thinking about how that could look, because I worked with a registered dietitian who has since retired, but I worked with her for a decade. And, someone like that maybe would be open to doing something, a Zoom,
right.
Of course, but a Zoom to educate, families on, diet.
Right.
To, again, it's simple, like what you should avoid, what you should look for.
Right.
Not necessarily, here, you need to eat these 6 food groups or 5 food groups and,
right.
Exercise for this many minutes a week. It's more of like, what are your options in your realistic life, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because you can swap, right? I can get low sodium canned green beans instead of regular, or no salt. You know what I mean?
Right.
So sometimes it's still a can of green beans, but trying to give people direction to maybe pick that healthier option.
So it's a harder way. It's harder but better.
It's harder but better. You gotta, take the time. But I've looked there and look at it like this, and I know people, and I say, boy, these people are living their best life, or what they think they're doing. I see people smoking cigars
Right.
and hookahs, and they're like in their 30s, 40s, early 50s. And I'm like, you're doing all of this now and having fun and eating what you want, but what are you
Right.
going to be in 60, 70, and
Right.
hopefully
Right.
80?
Hmm.
You want to be able to play with your grandkids. That is my goal because I didn't have grandparents. So
Right. Mhm.
so look to the future, not just for yourself, like, you know, look for your children's future, because kids
Right.
nowadays, well, young adults in their 20s and 30s are getting colorectal cancer. Why?
Yes.
Because of what we're feeding people, the
Right.
fake, processed foods, the dyes. So
Hmm.
making swaps would be a great thing. So it's not making people like, okay, well, you can't have this. Maybe get lightly salted or no salt added. They sell no salt added chips. Granted, again, certain areas are not going to have all these options, but
Hmm.
I can kind of, you can kind of try and guide people. You're not going to be at the grocery store with everyone. So just trying to give people little simple changes, because if you say, okay, well, everything you're doing is wrong, you need to do this instead,
Right. It's going to be hard
that's,
to make that
yeah, they're
that
not
message.
going to. They're not
Right.
going to
Hmm.
make the change, but maybe little changes which can then impact them, right? If you're
Hmm.
reducing your sodium, if you're reducing, some of the processed foods,
Hmm.
you're not
Hmm.
taking it away,
Hmm.
but you're reducing it and swapping things out, and to get your mind thinking. And then
Right.
hopefully that thought will continue to grow.
Right.
But just like Dr. Uchino was talking about, making it sustainable so you do not have to, get support from foundations
Right.
like ours. You can do it yourself, so
Right.
that's where when I say mentoring families,
Right.
not just the children, is because
Right.
I want them to grow up and be able to sustain. I want those families to, you know,
Hmm.
have the resources, the educational piece to maybe make some changes, and not education that families are going back to school,
Hmm.
but giving little information. Like, again, you don't want to overwhelm people sometimes, but just little things like the no sodium,
Right.
low sodium, or giving people the resources to know what's out there that could maybe be help them to
Right.
get a
One.
trade, and that they
Right.
can do it at home at night. You know what I mean? So people can learn, like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I could go to school for this. Like, I had employees that were interested in medical assisting school, and I had found a program because these women had kids, single mothers. And I was like, you can do it online. You can become a medical assistant online. And, medical assisting, at least where I live, is a very, um,
Yeah.
a high demand. They're in all doctors' offices and hospitals and things like that. Sometimes they have a different title, patient care technician. But at the end of the day, it is a skill, it's a trade that you're going to learn. Healthcare is always going to be in play. You're guaranteed a job that's going to pay you most likely above minimum wage. If minimum wage is $15.49, you're probably going to be able to get $16.50 to $17 to start. So it kind of goes into again, giving people resources like the medical assisting program, how you can do it from home. You don't have to worry about, going in a classroom. So it's like, again, helping people with little things, not saying, hey, you need to go to school. You know what I mean? Like, you need to go to college. You can just get a trade and you can do it from home if you want to. Some people don't want to also.
Right. So, the one thing I thought about during my cough spell is something that they've done here in Georgia that I've seen at work that I'm thinking, here's something that we could do in terms of having a community gardens for students who say we can maybe think about buying, like, okay, a piece of land in, say, a country like Jamaica or whatever it is, and say to kids, um, if you plant um, some garden stuff, maybe food or vegetables, whatever it is, and these kids are from high school or primary school or whatever it is, they take ownership of that garden, and we're able to develop this idea that they can have food sustainability. And it starts from the very beginning, maybe in school, and that they thinking that this is something that they can do on a long-term basis. I'm thinking if we get it doesn't have to be a large part of land, but just a piece of land that we said, okay, here's a community garden for children and all of that, or kids, and they learn to plant, and while they're in school, they take responsibility for that. And so we divide up the garden. What do you think about it, Dr. Chen? It's just something that I see here in Georgia. And I've seen it work, and I'm thinking something like that could work in a place like Jamaica or elsewhere. So in terms of saying how we get that done, we're going to need sponsors and partners who are saying, okay, can we do that? And can we look to something like that, Dr. Chen? I would love for you to talk about it, because I know that where you're from originally, you've been working on these issues for a long time, and we're going to be needing to think about that, Doctor.
Please, can you help me out? I didn't get the initial part of the comment.
Yeah, right. So I was mentioning like community gardens, how we are able to, for young people, develop like community gardens for them, and maybe buy a piece of land or whatever it is. But community gardens is something that young people take ownership of, say small pieces, and plant food, maybe broccoli or foods like that are nutritious, watermelon and all these things that are sustainable, rather than going to the store and go get them some drink, sodas and all of that. We could do something sustainable, so that's something that in the few minutes we have left, we could, you could talk about a little bit about that, because I know you've been working on these issues for a while.
Okay, if I understand you, we're talking about having alternatives to maybe having them produce the actual foods they need rather than
exactly
from the grocery stores.
Exactly, Doctor. Maybe start to think about, can we do it? Can they do it? Because they've been doing it since. If we say start a program like that, they've been doing that and they learned and developed that, and that's a sustainable program.
Okay, so that's a good idea. It's part of the sustainability we are talking about, but
yes,
one, it requires some like an independent inquiry into the particular community. How well does that sit in with the youth there? Sometimes, so that we don't start a project that might end up not achieving its purpose, because we need to know how this community, because one, if we are doing it, we have to get the beneficiaries who are the youth to be the ones to run the gardens, to do the work there.
Yes, exactly.
Manage the gardens.
Manage the gardens and tell us about the profits. Or if you have to sell it, sometimes you may have to sell it, but you have to eat it. It is something that could become something that they are managing, maybe just for food, or just as a learning environment, something like we're learning how to do that. We're learning how to be self-sufficient, self-sustainable, and we're starting from scratch. So that is something that, Doctor, it is an important thing. It came to me. I'm thinking that we do here in Georgia. When you drive around, you could see these kids in these gardens, and they come by during a certain period and look to see if the fruit is ripening or whatever it is, and then they pick it, or if it's not, they pull out the weeds and all that, and they come back and making sure that they're learning something that's about sustainability. That's something that we could probably teach, or and get ask partnership to be able to help develop a program like that, maybe. Something like that. So I like the idea, Doctor. But we're talking about Mission Ambassadors program. We don't get too much off topic, but it's about people joining the organization and beginning to promote some of the things that we've been talking about, and the programs that we are talking about: food and health and education, and that's some of the things that we're trying to push. Any other thoughts, Doctor, on what we're trying to get done? I know we're about at the end, but I am, what other ways can we promote the foundation and long-term sustainability and all of that? I know you have some thoughts. I'm going to rack your brain until the end. Tell us about some good tried and true things that we could do.
But I think we need to also put as part of our pillars research and training. Because
research and training. Tell us about that.
First, we need to understand the communities we are operating in and their response to certain projects. Then for the training, I think we need to change the mindset of most of these people. Let's be objective. For instance, let's take for the United States, there are quite a lot of opportunities, but how well do people cash into it? And how well do they utilize the opportunity? It depends on mindset. Right. I see a lot of people. I've been here in around Maryland for the past 3 months now. And I see a lot of people out there homeless, and I keep asking, does it mean they don't have, they are not documented or whatever? And you find out some of them, it's the mindset. They need to be trained to understand that life is a challenge and you need to embrace it. So we need to create some awareness in those communities, and that is what will help develop the people to be able to manage this kind of gatherings and other programs where they have to be actively involved. Because
something like a sustainable school, like a educate. Is it something that we do? Maybe develop a curriculum. I mean, tell me a little bit more about in terms of training, and is it something that we create and then say, here's a procedure that we can follow? This is in terms of training and all of that, because I'm interested in sustainability. That's what we've been kind of going towards. I like the idea about training, because that is an important thing in terms of training the mind about, can we become different? Can we do this differently? Can we achieve our goals? And I like the stuff that has come out of our three of us conversations, and I like the things that Rise will be talking about, and it piggies back right to what you're talking about, Dr. Uchenna. But what other things on your mind on that?
Yeah, we use opportunities like when we are on doing our Giving Tuesdays, maybe when people that's the best time to get them to listen to you, pass a short message. And then we might organize some form of community job fair where people come to advertise and you expose them to certain job opportunities. And then entrepreneurial skills also. We can also have some partners who will come and train on some certain entrepreneurial skills. So it's not just a closed concept. It's something we can develop around, tailor to certain situations depending on the particular location where and the laws in that area. So I think it's something we can use different media. We can do virtual, we can do physical at the point of communication with them when you're giving them the foods, be able to give them a little talk before the distribution starts. Yeah.
All right. So definitely great ideas. Razel, any closing thoughts on our discussion today? And any closing thoughts on and what you would like to say some more? Any closing thoughts?
Well, when we were talking about the food gardens, you know, the gardens can be incentivized by the children coming in, let's say from 4 to 6, there's a volunteer there, right, to help support them. But then also there's going to be like little baskets, and that the kids, as the food ripens, each child can take something home with them. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like incentivizing them, because they're getting educated, but they're getting fresh produce or vegetable, they're getting fresh produce to take home with them. So like when you're not selling it, but when promoting it to people within the community, it's like you're doing volunteer work in a sense by managing this garden with support of a volunteer with Face Friends Foundation. But as the fruit and vegetables grow, you get to see all your hard work, and then you have a healthy food options. Again, would be great in a place that doesn't have that, in communities that don't have that close proximity for people to get those types of items.
Right. So Raisa, you're talking about incentivize, and is it something where we do it on a regular basis? I mean, that whenever they come over to look at their gardens, do we incentivize that by saying that every time when you come over, there's a basket of
well, it all depends on
or something.
It all depends on the crop, right? The crops, are you growing carrots, celery, potatoes? You're going to be growing more than one, or you should be growing more than, several different options. And then it depends on how the crop is coming in. And then you can also do stuff that grows throughout the year, depending on where this land is. You can grow stuff that will grow in the fall. You can grow pumpkins, so that you have them in the fall, or you can grow potatoes, you can grow collard greens, and then you pull them when the frost comes. So you can kind of grow, and then, earlier in the year you're growing corn, and, so it's kind of, so it's continually, continually growing throughout the year. So it's not just a season that you're doing this for, not just helping people throughout the, one nice season. But yeah, it's like, it depends on the crops.
Right.
So it depends on the crops, depends on the number of people.
Right.
But you got to put the work in to get that. And, depending on how they're doing, depends on maybe how much you can take home. Can you take 3 years? Everyone can, we can afford to do 3 years of corn for each volunteer that's managing the garden. It just depends.
Right. So that is a great discussion and idea. And I like that it came out of this discussion right here. And I appreciate you, Raisel, for coming and discussing that. I appreciate you, Dr. Uchenna. I know we're getting close, and I don't want to go beyond 1:30. So I wanted to thank you, Dr. Uchenna, the work that you do. I've seen it, and I've been following you and what you do for the foundation in terms of advice and partnership discussions and all that. We will be doing one of those on Monday, and we're going to be talking to this organization that we hope to help us move items and people and cargo to back to Jamaica, wherever it is. And hopefully, because of this discussion today, we can be able to speak on what it is that the foundation is about on a long-term basis. I like the fact that we discussed this today, that some of these discussions will go into our meeting on Monday with this organization. And so I love that. I appreciate you, Doctor, and appreciate you, Raisel, for the work that you do. With a lot of people don't know, and I don't want to discuss too much, but you are exemplary of volunteer and sacrifice, with your qualifications and experience. Any organization would be, appreciative of you in the organization being able to work on these critical matters. But our organization has you doing and volunteering, and that is so important. And that's what we like to see in a staff. A great director of programs management, Raisel, Dr. Uchenna, great director of strategic partnerships. And so as we get closer towards the end, I just want to thank you. I know that there are people that this will go to as it being recorded, and you will see this later on. And some people on LinkedIn and businesses and organization and Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, and the discussion we had about sustainability. whether or not you should help this organization move from just being able to respond to, say, a natural disaster like Hurricane Melissa, what's going on in Jamaica, because that is what we are wanting to do. But the sustainability piece, it doesn't get funded by itself. We ask an organization to be able to help us, partnership with the foundation to be able to help us. And if you are hearing this message, we're just asking that, okay, can you reach out to the foundation? And people like Dr. Uchenna Rizel can be able to discuss how we move a program like that we talked about, like a food program, quality of food that people eat to be able to prevent sickness, prevent people getting diabetes and sugar and all that. Treatment, talk about early detection, early prevention. That is something that we need to start thinking about, not just screening, but preventing from the very beginning, diabetes and all of that sometimes people say might be preventable, and some people it runs in the family, that sugar and all of that. And so these are the discussions we had today. We appreciate just to be able to have these two quality individuals. And you guys who are listening today, you're thinking, do I help fund this organization? I'm thinking, yes, that's what we would love for you to go to our website and to be able to donate to the organization. And maybe it's $1,000, maybe $500, maybe it's $10, maybe it's a great grant that you could provide to the foundation. We're looking for anything that we could help in changing the lives of people who are or living in or either below the poverty guidelines, just making do, and that's what the foundation is about. It's not about us, it's about them, the people that we are trying to change their lives and make a difference. Great work for a young organization. The ambition to be just 4 years old and wanting to be great and wanting to do great things. I'm proud to be executive director of Faith Friends Foundation. I'm proud to be having leaders like Dr. Uchenna, like Rizel, all who are great leaders in the environment that we are today. I appreciate everyone who joined or will join this broadcast sometime in the future, and thinking, how do we help a situation and become people who are change makers, who are doing good leadership, and be able to say, I was a part of that movement that did that. So thanks everyone, and for the people who are looking to be Faith Friends Foundation ambassadors, mission ambassadors. I want you to do that, to inquire what you need to do in order to become great ambassadors for the organizations. And so I ask you to, some of you have already joined, but not knowing yet what your work is. And my thing is to say, speak with Dr. Ron Ely about becoming part of the organization when you sign up on board. I appreciate you all, appreciate everyone, and we're going to end this broadcast. It was our first inaugural open house, so hopefully next year we'll have a lot more, but this will go out on social media, and I appreciate everyone, and we look forward again to now meeting you at another time. Thank you, and may God bless you.